Jamie Dimon, he's the CEO of the largest bank in America, J.P. Morgan Chase, arguably the most influential voice in finance, and on Wednesday, he shocked the world by saying the US should brace itself for an economic hurricane. If you think I'm kidding or exaggerating, take a listen for yourself.
It's a hurricane. Right now it's kind of sunny, things are doing fine. Everyone thinks the Fed can handle this. That hurricane is right out there down the road coming our way. We just don't know if it's a minor one or Superstorm Sandy or Sandy or Andrew or something like that. And you better brace yourself.
Now, the media went crazy with the headlines following his comments, but in today's video, I intend to take a deeper look into his thinking and break down the various reasons why Jamie may be correct and why the US should expect an economic disaster soon based on some real leading indicators. We know it's notoriously hard to predict a recession. It doesn't matter what the economy or stock market is doing, somewhere out there somebody's always writing about the next big crash, and most of these people end up being dead wrong. Since the end of World War II in 1945, the US has had only 12 noteworthy recessions. That's about one per 6 years. But today's decline seems a bit more dramatic. How often does the CEO of the world's biggest bank, a man whose entire career is based on carefully chosen words, come out publicly and tell everyone to, quote, brace themselves? It's exceptionally rare and bizarre. CEOs are essentially salespeople whose job it is to paint their companies in the best light possible. Even in the worst of situations, leaders will simply ignore warning signs and push happy narratives to investors all day long. I can actually prove this because, as it turns out, Jamie Dimon was the CEO of Chase since 2005. Now, if you know anything about that era, this was the heyday of CDOs and profits. Banks were making a killing, everyone was happy, and the market was up and up. Then in 2007, people began to worry that CDOs were incredibly dangerous. It could potentially bring down the housing market and then the entire economy. So look no further than the 2007 Chase Q2 report transcript. This call was done July 18th, about 3 months before the market would start its massive crash, ending about 55% down. During the call, Jamie states that the global economy is great, corporations are strong, unemployment is low, and the economic backdrop is nice. When asked about the CDOs and their dangers, he reassures the analyst by saying that, quote, these things are not something that should keep people up at night, end quote. And 3 months later, we all know what happened. So relying on the words of Jamie Dimon hasn't exactly been accurate in years past, but this time Jamie is on the other side of the fence claiming things will be bad, not good, and his reasons are pretty solid. So who to believe? Is this just another 4D chess move by a big bank executive to get people to sell? Or is this an honest guy who's looking to warn the everyday man about the upcoming turmoil? Well, that's the million-dollar question. What can we look at to get a real data-driven view regarding the situation? Turns out that one of the best reports on predicting a recession was done by Guggenheim Investments. They looked at dozens of different indicators and then condensed them into a nice summarized report. Now, without boring you to death with a long PowerPoint, we're going to be looking at just a few important points this fascinating report makes. Also, keep in mind that it was created in 2018, so we're going to be using new data with their existing methodology to generate a new outlook. It's the same concept, just with fresh numbers. One of the first things this report points out is that history shows us economic cycles exhibit fairly consistent symptoms leading up to a recession, starting with a labor market that evolves from cool to hot and a monetary policy stance that progresses from loose to tight in response. And we see that today. We went from sky-high unemployment in 2008 to the tightest labor market ever. Although Guggenheim Partners uses its proprietary charts and data for their special unemployment gap chart, we can replicate it using their very own formulas. Not to save you the boredom, I'm just going to tell you exactly where we are today. Using the same methodology and assuming the next unemployment number comes in line with analyst expectations, we will be right here on this chart at -1%. This puts us around 9 to 15 months away from a recession according to their estimates. Next up is Fed tightening. Leading up to past recessions, the Fed has usually hiked rates beyond their natural rate to cool the labor market and get ahead of inflation, only to inadvertently push the economy into recession. Right now, we are here on the chart at approximately -1.5%, which puts us around 24 months away from a recession. But there is an asterisk. Because the Fed is expected to hike interest rates at a much higher rate to curb record high inflation, by the end of the year, we are expected to be right here, which puts us about 6 months away from the recession. So realistically, this chart can be adjusted to say that given the estimated acceleration of rate hikes in the coming months, it can be presumed that based on history, we are 9 to 15 months away from recession today. Finally, we have treasury yields. One of the most reliable and consistent predictors of recession has been the treasury yield curve. Recessions are always preceded by a flat or inverted yield curve, usually occurring about 12 months before the downturn begins. Right now, this number reads 175, which puts us around 30 to 36 months away from a recession. Not exactly the bearish sentiment we were looking for. The curve is headed towards that zero line, but it's still got a ways to go. So putting that all together, we can say that based on history, we are still easily more than a year away from a possible recession. The labor market is very tight, but the Fed has really only talked about raising interest rates, and the important treasury yield curves are not inverted or flat. These findings paint a confusing picture. On one hand, we have historical evidence that suggests that we are still years away from a recession. On the other hand, this may just be a special, unique outlier in economic history. After all, we just underwent a bizarre shock to the world by living through a historic pandemic, followed up by a shocking war that placed commodities under serious pressure. There is no telling how these two factors, alongside unprecedented government money printing, have altered the accuracy of traditional economic health checks. For many, the saying will be, "This time it's different." Let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed it.